Hello YouTube fam, how we doing today? It's Iconic, and I'm coming at you with another Diablo Immortal video. Alright, so for this one, I'm going to be taking a look at my first build for the Blood Knight, and I've been having a little bit of fun with this one. I think this is a good farming build, Elder Rift, potentially challenge rifts, but definitely more of your farming build, just running around Overworld, doing contracts, doing bounties. It doesn't quite have the top end DPS that I've come to expect from a lot of my characters for running things like solo dungeons per se, or the single target damage that you need for a boss. But I do think it's a pretty fun build, and I've enjoyed messing around with it so far. So let's take a look at the essences. So we have Horns of the Hex. Siphon Blood is no longer channeled and now moves with you, dealing damage and draining the life of nearby enemies. Swarm of Bats, damage increased by 10%. And then we have this slot awakened, so we have an extra 10% as well. Swarm of Bats now shrouds you in a fog of blood mist, increasing your movement speed and making you untargetable while also dealing damage to nearby enemies. This is Solemn Snare. And we also have 10% cooldown reduction on Swarm of Bats. Faces of Fading Mirth. Swarm of Bats now also poisons enemies, causing them to take 3,369 continual damage for 3 seconds. Siphon Blood also slows enemy movement speed by 30%, absorbing their vigor, and increases your movement speed by 10%, up to 30%. Umbral Lance now causes shadow spears to randomly fall from the sky within an area, dealing damage to enemies. Umbral Lance deals up to 40% increased damage the further you are from the target. After Shadow's Edge hits an enemy, 2 blades ricochet out randomly, targeting nearby enemies and dealing 15,000 damage to them. So depending on what it is, if I need all my damage, I will go ahead and drop Umbral Lance. And then I come in with Siphon of Blood as well as the Bats at the same time. Once the Bats go away, I still have Siphon Blood up and I can start to use my primary attack. And then we have Whirling Blade with no essence on it. This could be replaced with something different if you'd like. I'm playing around with this 4th slot here, but so far I found that Whirling Blade seems to work pretty well for me with it. And then for the sets, since this is a continual damage build, we're going to be doing 4-piece Grace. And I think this helps out with some of the damage that you don't have. With a 4-piece, each time you damage an individual enemy 5 times, you will do 10,387 additional damage to that enemies. And that kind of falls from the sky as a little beam that hits the enemies. And when you have your Siphon of Blood up, as well as your Bats, you actually have this falling pretty continuous. And then same thing with the Lance, as that's coming down and you're doing more damage with your other attacks, that's also going to be proccing Grace 4-piece. And then I typically always usually have some sort of Vithus, whether it's 4-piece or 2-piece, but for this build specifically, I do think Vithus 2-piece is pretty good for it. But this is going to have a little bit to do with my gym setup as well as some of the skills. So for the Swarm of Bats, this is only supposed to last 2 seconds, and we're actually getting about 3.5, almost 4 seconds with our beneficial effect duration on this one. This one doesn't appear to be a buff, at least from what the description on the skill itself says, but it does last quite a bit, and I noticed it seems to last a little bit longer with Vithus. So I'll have to specifically look to see if that's affecting it, but I'm pretty sure it does, as once I added this on, this is definitely lasting a lot longer than it appeared to at first glance when I was playing around with it. And then as well, when it comes to our gym setup, this is going to increase the duration of our Bottled Hope. It's also going to increase the duration of our Mother's Lament. I just started playing around with Frozen Heart as I replaced my Echoing Shade with that. But I think this may actually increase the duration of the Frozen Heart shield too as well. Again, I'm not 100% positive on that, but I'll have to look. And then it does also increase the duration of Gloom Cask, which is nice as well. For the Paragon tree, I'm going to be using Weaver for this one. Most of my builds are going to feature Weaver at this point, if you've been watching my videos. But outside of Weaver, of course, if you're running in a group, you could go with Mastermind if you have 4 different party members. If you're just happen to be farming and that's all you care about at the moment, Treasure Hunter is always a good one to put in there. And I could definitely see Vanquisher being a decent one to put on this as well too. For our family bonuses, this is a pretty standard setup for me at this point, but I'm always looking to get attack speed increase, duration of beneficial effects increase, critical hit damage since I have my Mother's Lament, all skill damage, and primary attack damage, as I usually feature my primary attack quite a bit in the builds. And then I like to have Vengeance, a 3-piece Vengeance on at least a couple of my items. I may play around with this a little bit more when it comes to Blood Knight, but I'm either doing some combination of those 5 skills or those 5 family bonuses that you see here, and then adding Vengeance to the mix. But I may be trying something a little bit different with the Blood Knight when it comes to my family bonuses. We'll have to play around with that. And for my primary attack, we're going to be going with the Shadow's Edge. I don't like the other one, Ravage. To me, you're having to get in a little bit too close, and I don't like the ultimate as much either, and there doesn't seem to be as many good essences for it. There's only a couple of essences for Shadow's Edge, but the Ricochet one is actually really good, and I like using that myself. For Warband Room, I tend to typically go with the damage done increased by 3.5%, as there's some really good remnants that go along with this one. I may actually start playing around with the movement speed because Blood Knight does feel a little slower than most of the other characters to me. So for PvE, we may actually change this to movement speed, but for now we do have it on attacker. This build I'm not using for PvP per se. I have tested it out a little bit, but if I was doing PvP, I typically go with Protector and do the increased block chance by 5%. And this also has some good remnants that go along with it too as well. And then for curse properties, again, I haven't really been worrying about the curse properties as much, as I'm swapping out gear all the time now, and it's been really hard to keep those cursed bonuses. But I think I do have. Actually, I may need to change this because I just changed out some of my gear. That's what I mean. Trying to keep up with this all the time is ridiculous. But I have Lash going, and that just happens to be, I changed some gear out, and that was active. I actually probably would do the Dark Void, Detested, or Atrophied with this build. And then I may try to get the Shield one too as well. Or maybe Ghosted, but that would be probably more for PvP. All right, and then let's take a look at this in Overworld. Again, this isn't necessarily the max damage output where I'd be doing this in like solo dungeon scenarios or raids or really trying to take out a boss here, but I really actually enjoy this one for Overworld and farming, running Elder Rifts. So I'm just going to take you around the loop here real quick in Mount Sylvain and show you how this works. All right, so we're here at the Monk Loop, and I'm running it the opposite way. I usually don't like to go counterclockwise, but I wanted to grab a pack of enemies here. So we're going to start with Siphon of Blood and then go to Swarm of Bats. And that takes them right out, and we're just moving around. We actually didn't have to do anything. And then we'll follow it up with our Umbral Lance, as well as a Whirlwind. And then we're spamming our primary attack at that point until we get Siphon of Blood and Swarm of Bats back. And we have poison on our Swarm of Bats, and with the Pain Clasp, that's just going to allow us to continue to move on, as well as Seep and Bile. I didn't talk about all the gems, but we're rocking Gloom Cask, we're rocking Bottled Hope, Blood-Soaked Jade, Seeping Bile, Mother's Lament, Pain Clasp, Frozen Heart, And here's what I mean. So this boss has almost 2 million life. And I didn't have all my skills ready, and he interrupted one of them there, but that usually, I mean, with other builds on other characters, it doesn't take me that long to take out a normal boss like that. But we definitely do get a really good burst with Mother's Lament. And you have some speed to move around with the swarm of bats here. All right, that's what I wanted to show you guys though today. This is my continual damage build for Blood Knight. You definitely have to have the gray set for this to really take effect. As you can see, all of the little lightning strikes or extra damage falling from the sky there onto the enemies. And then you want Vithus to be able to extend your swarm of bats. If you happen to have Gloom Cask or Bottled Hope or Mother's Lament, anything like that where you could potentially increase the duration of that beneficial buff that's going on to you. Let me know what you guys think. Like, comment down below. Tell me, have you been experimenting with the Blood Knight? What builds have you come up with? This is all off the cuff for me too as well. I took a little bit of a break the last week and a half or so. So since Blood Knight has come out, I haven't really done too much testing with it. So this is a build that I put together that I've enjoyed playing so far, but I have no clue. Is this the meta build? Is this, how good is this build? I've just been having fun with it. So yeah, would love to hear what builds you guys have been using, how it's working for you. Let me know. And as always, I know you guys know what to do, but I appreciate you. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.